Peekaboo! Hello everyone, I'm Paul, and welcome to another Zenless Zone Zero video. Today we are at Lumina Square and they have these wonderful New Year decorations. They look really cool, to be honest. And today I'm going to talk about team building once again. But unlike last time, I will go more into detail about agents and how they synergize with each other. Now let's take a look at an agent as an example. I'll take Soldier 11 as an example. When you click on Soldier 11 and take a look at the base stats, what are the first three things you see? Well, you see the character's faction, namely the Obsidian Defense Force squad, Obol squad, right? That is a character's faction. And below it we have a character's element and class. And these three components largely determine how well do agents synergize between each other. But before I go into detail on factions, elements, and classes, I will show you something first. Take a look at this thing called an additional ability. Every agent has an additional ability, and there are certain conditions that have to be met. Namely, in order for an agent to activate its additional ability, the requirements are based off of your other team members. So for example, if you are running an agent solo, you have only one team member, the additional ability will never be active. For Soldier 11 and for most of the older agents in this game, the requirements are a character that shares the same attribute or faction. Attribute being an element, in this case fire. So if you have another character that shares the squad, the Obol squad, or you have a character that shares the element, namely fire in this case, Soldier 11's additional ability will activate.
Awaiting further instructions.
And as I said, most of the older agents also have the same requirements of faction or element.
I'm at your disposal.
Lycon has the same requirement, as you can see here, the same attribute or faction. So if you have anyone from Victoria Housekeeping in your team, or anyone who has an ice element, the additional ability will be activated. Miyabi counts as an ice agent for this purpose, and you can consider frost as an element, the same as ice, but just better, because hell yeah, power creep.
Eradicate all evil.
But Miyabi is the only case so far where her element isn't one of the standard 5. But if you take a look at ice, she does count as an ice element agent for all intents and purposes. But if you take a look at the newer agents, like I will use Miyabi as an example again, let's take a look at her additional skill. So the requirements are a bit different. Okay, the faction requirement is here, but this time instead of an element, if you have a support character in your squad, you will activate this ability. So if you have anyone from section 6,
This is the path I follow.
or anyone from these guys, regardless of element, their skill will be activated. Now, let's take a look at a few factions. I'll use Victoria Housekeeping as the first example. Now, you can't just use any two agents from a faction and expect them to synergize well. But in every faction, there typically are a few pairs that work well together. Now, the best pairing here is Lycon and Ellen, due to Lycon having a few buffs that are specific to the ice element, or rather, ice-specific debuffs to enemies, which Ellen can use and Corin really cannot, because she is physical. Now, you can't just expect any two characters from a faction to have synergies, but typically one or more pairs will have excellent synergy from a faction. So as I mentioned here, Lycon and Ellen come to mind in Victoria Housekeeping, and that is probably the strongest pairing for this faction. And currently the strongest factions, in my opinion, would be Section 6 and Sons of Calydon. So let's take a look at Section 6 first. Section 6, excluding Sokaku, is full of amazing characters. Miyabi being the most broken agent in the game at this point, and Yanagi being not as broken, but still capable of delivering like 5 million amperes through someone. Like, she does crazy damage, let's be real. Harumasa has quite a learning curve, but he is quite worth it. I've seen him do insane stuff. I'm just gonna say that. Obviously, I can't give you Harumasa tips because I don't actually use him yet. So for that, you might have to find the guide yourself. But Miyabi has good synergy with Yanagi and Sokaku. But Sokaku really wants Miyabi. She really doesn't pair up well with any of the other Section 6 members. And this brings us to the Sons of Calydon.
We fighting? Take me.
Now this faction is really well-rounded. In terms of synergies, this one just might be the best in the game. Because, I kid you not, from this list, you can pick any two characters. They will have awesome synergy together. Like, Caesar and Lucy.
Good day, Proxy.
It works. I use Caesar and Lucy with Soldier 11. Lucy and Piper. Excellent. Caesar and Piper. Pretty good. Now, Caesar and Lighter could be a little redundant, seeing as both of them are technically stun characters, but at that point, Caesar could be relegated to a support role, while Lighter could just do all the punching. And Bernice, just use her with another Anomaly agent. You can even grab Piper and pick literally anyone else from this list, and it works. So this is the only faction where you can pick any two characters, and you could find a way for them to work really well. And then you have this. What the hell is this? Now, let's talk a bit about elements and how elements affect your gameplay experience. Most of you will understand that a lot of additional skills are activated if you have two agents of the same element. But that's not the only thing. If you take a look at any content in the game ever created, you will see that the bosses and enemies have weaknesses and resistances. I think the best example here would be Shield Defense, because there are a lot of groups of enemies and it lets me show you elements easily and how they work. So there are 5 elements, but there are 3 common patterns that you will see throughout your journeys. And what I mean by this is, let's take a look at these 7 nodes and the enemy's weaknesses. Take a note of these pairings: Ice and Ether, Fire and Physical, and Solo Electric weakness. Those 3 are by far the most common types you will face. And to prove this, I will just go through all of the 7 nodes and you will just see how many of these patterns repeat themselves. Ice Ether, Solo Electric. Ice Ether, Solo Electric. Ice Ether, Solo Electric. Fire Physical, remember what I talked about earlier. This is an outlier. This is an outlier, but once again, Solo Electric. Fire Physical. Ice Ether. So those are the most common weaknesses and weakness pairings, rather, that you will see. And the enemy's weaknesses play a huge role in the teams you will use for these missions. And now you may be wondering, but Paul, do I have to use 3 fire characters if I want to build a fire team? The answer is no. And the element of your team is largely determined by which element deals the most damage. And I will explain quickly. Let's take a look at my teams that I have on presets here. Take a look at the first team. This is a fire team. It does not have 3 fire characters, but I would say 95% of the damage done will be fire damage. Sure, Caesar is a physical agent, but Caesar doesn't really have an attacker role. She doesn't do a lot of damage. She is just there to support. The vast majority of the damage will be done by Soldier 11 and Lucy when switching in. And that is a fire team, for example. You can use 3 characters of the same element to make a team if it is beneficial, and if they have good synergies outside of their elements. For example, the Fort Squad. As I was saying earlier, Miyabi and Sukaku work great, and Lycon has some great buffs that help ice characters. So this team is perfect. And you might notice the third team. Well, the third team is a little different, because in this case both electric and physical damage are important. And I can't really say, oh, this is an electric team, oh, it's a physical team. It's a disorder team, and I'll keep it short and just say that this team benefits from having 2 anomaly characters of a different element. Now, I still wouldn't bring this team to an enemy who is resistant to electric, but if this team has neutral effectiveness, it will do just fine. Let's talk a bit about classes. I talked about elements and factions and how they influence your team building and gameplay experience, but another key factor are character classes. And just like elements,
Awaiting further instructions.
there are 5 character classes in this game. So let's talk about the attack and anomaly classes. I will talk about those two as one, because their job is essentially similar. They will be your main damage dealers. Now, attack characters do their damage based on their attack and crit chance and damage stats. That's how they typically scale. While anomaly agents will typically benefit from, well, attack and these 2 stats, anomaly proficiency and anomaly mastery. Now, anomaly agents inflict these so-called anomalies, which are just fancy names for status effects, and their damage and the speed of how quickly they can be applied are determined by these 2 stats.
You have my complete support.
So that's the basis of how these 2 classes work and how they are different. Miyabi is an exception
This is the path I follow.
because, while being an anomaly agent, she scales off of attack and crit stats. Sounds familiar? Yeah, attackers scale off of crit. But Miyabi just transcends everything and breaks every rule in the game, so at this point it's not really much of a surprise.
Eradicate all evil.
But yeah. Now, attack and anomaly agents are going to be your starting points for team building. You won't really start building teams based on supports, right? Supports are something you add later. But attack and anomaly agents are the core of your teams, the ones who will be doing the most damage, of course. And the ones who will spend the most time on the field. Now, you can create a team starting from 1 attacker, 1 anomaly agent,
You have my complete support.
or you can create a team with 2 anomaly agents called the Disorder team. Now, I won't go into detail about how Disorder works, but let's just put it this way. These teams benefit from quickly applying anomalies of different elements, and that's how they do a lot of damage. If you guys want an in-depth explanation of disorder teams, I can create a video in the future which will be dedicated to just that. But for now, let's leave it at this. Now, attack and anomaly agents typically don't mix well together due to a few different factors. Namely, they will be competing for their field time first and foremost. But, of course, there are exceptions to every rule, and I have seen a team that combines an attack character and an anomaly character really well. Now, I don't know how this exactly works because I don't have these characters in the first place, but Harumasa and Grace, and a support, I think it was Astra, I don't remember. But yes, these two.
Need something? Go ask my colleagues.
Grace, in this case, doesn't spend a lot of time on the field, she just applies the shock anomaly. And she doesn't even do the most damage. Harumasa does the most damage because if you take a look at Harumasa's kit, I will keep it short. Is it here? Yes, so when any squad member applies an attribute anomaly, 6 of these electro quavers are generated, and that's the basis of how Harumasa works. So Grace being able to quickly apply anomaly and just get out means that she acts as a support to Harumasa rather than fulfilling her own role as an anomaly agent. But as I said, this is an outlier. So typically you'll be building teams starting from one attack agent, one anomaly agent, or 2 anomaly agents. So the rest of the slots are populated by, well, other classes.
Eradicate all evil.
Let's talk briefly about stun characters. There aren't that many stun characters in the game at the moment, but of course, as the name implies, stun characters are used to stun opponents quickly, and they scale off of this cool looking stat called impact. And yes, impact determines how quickly a target can be stunned. Of course, bosses take a long time, even with this high impact. But in order to stop stunners from being extremely broken, the developers decided to give you very limited ways of increasing impact. Namely, for stun characters, you will receive a little bit of base impact from 3 core skill nodes, from the Shockstar Disco set, and from the 6th disc slot having an impact set of 18% at maximum level. And lastly, W engines for stun characters tend to have impact as their stat. Now, outside of just stunning opponents quickly, most stunners bring some other benefits like buffs or debuffs. Lycon, namely, has great buffs for Ice Team specifically. Not because he is an ice element himself, but rather because his core skill reduces ice damage resistance.
I shall follow your orders.
Someone like Lighter is rather unique and overpowered because for some reason he can reduce ice and fire resistances at the same time, so he is more versatile than Lycon in that regard, that both ice and fire teams can use him.
I'm here, so we're good.
So stun characters are typically found in your standard attack teams or anomaly teams, but in disorder teams, since you already have 2 characters that are of the anomaly class, the last slot will typically be either stun or a support, so they will have to compete for the last slot, and you just have to see what's more important to you. Slight correction. The reason that stun agents aren't used in disorder teams is because the 2 anomaly agents used already take up a ton of field time and require you using them a lot on the field. So using a support is better in this sense, because supports don't need to be active on the field a whole lot in order to pass their buffs on to other characters. Bye. Now, let's talk about support characters. Support characters look pretty unassuming. but they are the cornerstone of the vast majority of teams. And what differentiates the support class from other classes is the fact that they typically don't spend a lot of time on the field, and yet they will activate a lot of useful buffs or debuffs for your party. And another distinction, another unique trait of this class are so-called quick assists, and they just represent a very quick way for specific characters on your team, preferably remain damage dealers, to switch in. And I will do a quick demonstration in the VR training mode of how quick assists work. Alright, welcome to free training mode. Today's topic? Quick assists. Now, I won't be going into detail on how to play every support character, but rather I just wanted to show you how the quick assist mechanic itself works. So typically, when you switch in a character, this is how it works. Or, you can do a defensive assist like that. But, this is something that's exclusive to supports pretty much. They can do something like this. And as you can see, I was able to quickly switch in Soldier 11, and she immediately went to the location of the enemy, who was hit by this. Alright, I missed this one somehow, I don't know what the hell this is, but... See that? Quick assists allow you to keep the offensive going, and they allow you to immediately start reaping the benefits from the buffs that your supports give you. Lucy can also trigger this from a chain attack, or from an ultimate. And supports typically have multiple ways of triggering quick assists. And now let's take a look
We fighting? Take me.
at the last character class on the list. The Defenders. There are only 3 defense characters so far in the game, and there are only 2 things that I would say differentiates the defense class from all other classes. The first thing is that they have methods of giving your other teammates shields. And the other characteristic of defense agents is related to the consumption of assist points when you parry an attack. But for now, let's talk about these 3 characters and the defense class as a whole. See, the defense class is just a mask for what truly lies underneath. Because Ben, he is a defender, but secretly he is an attack character. Reason being that if he builds defense, he gains attack from it, like so, and he can just gain an increased crit chance. Do you remember who else scales with crit chance? Well, all of the attackers, and Miyabi. So Ben is secretly an attack character. What about Seth?
A mission? Take me along.
What if I told you that Seth was actually a support character? You don't believe me? Check this out. Here's a description of Seth's shield. Okay, it's a shield, so what's so special about it? Having the shield increases anomaly proficiency by, well, up to 100, which is here. So Seth is essentially a support for anomaly teams, because, as I said, anomaly proficiency boost and anomaly build-up resistance decrease, which means that your anomaly agents will be able to proc anomalies quicker. So yes, Seth is a support character for anomaly teams.
A mission? Take me along.
And now let's talk about Caesar,
Only the brave will win.
our cute overlord. So, what does this girl have going for her? Well, a lot of things. What if I told you that Caesar is a stun and support character in one? Don't believe me? Check this out. Outside of, well, being visually stunning, get it? Impact increases. I wonder where have I seen this before? Oh wait, she is a stun character, never mind. And her shield her shield health scales with impact, by the way. But that's not everything. The support part of Caesar is that this shield, when it's active, it increases your attack by 1,000. Oh, and by the way, here's a nice damage increase from all sources. 25%. Not bad, huh?
Only the brave will win.
So yeah, Caesar is like the jack of all trades character. You can slot her into attack teams instead of a stunner. You can use her as a support. You can use her alongside another support. It's not a problem at all. And another reason why she is so versatile is because her additional ability, the requirements to activate this are practically zero. Okay, same faction. But take a look at this. When another character in your squad can activate defensive assist. Let me just show you who can activate defensive assist. Or rather, who cannot. Okay, Billy doesn't have a defensive assist. He dodges instead.
Let's start the
Grace.
experiment. Is
Zhu
something
Yuan. Rina.
1, 2, yes. All accounted
And
for.
Astra.
Ooh,
I
we
think
really
that's it.
nice.
So that was, what, like 5 characters? Out of how many? So you can see why Caesar is so versatile. And you can use her in practically any team. So, that covers everything for this video. Thank you everyone for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned a useful tip or two. And see you in the next video.